Just a quick word of warning before we get going that the following podcast will almost certainly contain spoilers and may also contain strong language and conversations of an adult nature.
Hello and welcome to episode 9 of Strong Language and Violent Scenes, the podcast giving a second chance to films that might not deserve them. As ever, I am Mitch Bain, a horror writer and occasional doer of musical things.
And I'm Andy Stewart. I'm a filmmaker and a journalist and various other miscellany.
Miscellany, nice, yeah. Nice. Mm-hmm. And delighted to be joined on the Skype tonight. He is an award-winning animator and filmmaker, famous for such work as Bobby Yeah, The Cat with Hands, also D is for Deloused from ABC's A Death 2.
Yes, indeed.
Joining us tonight, Mr. Rob Morgan. Rob, hello.
Hello, I expect that you should dub in like a round of applause or something there.
Absolutely.
That could be arranged.
Yeah, we do that as standard, it's fine. It's normally like 6 to 8 minutes of applause, is that cool? Sweet.
I'm happy with that, yeah, some cheering.
Slightly less than Rob's used to, but it's fine.
Yeah. So, Rob, straight in, you have gone with 1982's XTRO.
Yeah.
Harry Bromley Davenport's XTRO. So let's just dig straight into this. What were the reasons behind you bringing this to the table tonight?
Well, first of all, this is supposed to be like defending a film that has like a bad reputation.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the reputation is of XTRO among horror fans, but certainly I know like the reputation has been growing a lot in recent years, and I think it's probably looked at slightly more kindly than it used to be. But I know at the time, the sort of mainstream press, didn't give it a very good reception. So, but for me, I've chosen it because I just think it's a film that's been with me a very long time. I saw it when I was quite young, and I've revisited it numerous times over the years. And I just think there is nothing else like it. I think it's completely unique. I think it's got a completely unique atmosphere. I think even among the world of wild B movies and exploitation movies, it's pretty out there. And I think it just has an atmosphere that I really cannot think of another film that feels like XTRO. I mean, it's got a really unique atmosphere to it, which we can get into, in more detail.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think that what you said about it kind of like developing this kind of cult affection over the years is right enough. I think it's fair to say that the mainstream opinion on it, from what I can glean, is still not great. So I think it's a strong candidate because, as you touched on, it's a weird film with like this kind of burgeoning cult following, and also like it's just now gotten very good release from Second Sight.
Yeah, the Second Sight release that's just came out last week.
Advertising this because this is like perfect timing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Also coming hot off a request on Twitter for somebody to do this, so we're satisfying people left and right here.
There must be a growing appreciation of it. For years, when I had seen it when I was very young, and I was always telling my friends about it, and no one had heard of it when I was talking about it, and if they did, they were quite dismissive of it. Right. So it's nice now to sort of meet people that actually do appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like there's quite a lot of things that I found kind of surprising about it that we can get into as we go on. But before we do normally do something right at the beginning of the show. Andy, we have 30 seconds on the clock?
Yep, got that.
So, for the benefit of anyone who is listening in that hasn't seen XTRO before, we're going to ask you to do a 30-second synopsis, right? Brace yourself. Do you need a minute?
Yeah, I'll do it.
That defeats the purpose.
Okay, right. That's true. Right, okay. Are we good to go?
Yeah.
Right, 3, 2, 1, go.
Have at it.
Okay, XTRO is about a father who has a family. Where do you start? Okay, he's abducted by aliens at the beginning of the film. 3 years later, he comes back to rekindle his relationship with his son and his wife, but he's kind of been changed by his experience of having been abducted by aliens. And
Rob. I'm going to stop you there. You have run out of time, so we will have to just make this up as we go along.
That was pretty good, though.
I think
you can't really explain what happens next anyway.
That's very true. That's probably what we're going to spend the next hour doing. But I think in terms of scene setting, I'll give you the point.
Yeah, a New Line Cinema production, by the way, this.
Yeah, Bob Shea's name is on this.
It comes with some heavyweight backing in the form of Bob Shea, and that's
about... Like before he was Bob Shea, wasn't it? It's like before he was the Bob Shea that we know who made Nightmare on Elm Street. All the Lord of the Rings movies and stuff like that. I'm sure this is the one he's most proud of. Like.
I'd like to think so, yeah.
And why not?
So I think we should jump right in.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what you get at the beginning here is a very English family.
yeah,
is my take. As a Scotsman, I would say that my read was it was a very English family,
yeah.
And they're out in like the back garden of the house, right?
Yeah, I think so. It's a pretty big kind of country estate, so back garden could just be fields.
Yeah,
an extension of fields.
And you get a very abrupt entry of the aliens.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty well done. I like the look of that bit.
I do, and I don't like the look of that bit.
I mean, right from the outset, it's weird because they're in the garden playing, and there's just that weird. Just everything about it, the music and that just feels like a weird, cheap, like public information film or something.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the performances.
Yeah, and the performances as well. And straight away, the way that the abduction is depicted is just quite weird because he's throwing a stick for his dog. It kind of goes up into there and then sort of freeze frames.
Yep, that's right.
And then you get this weird flash of light and loads of like weird strong winds and stuff. And then he's kind of gone. He's
obviously struggling really, really heavily with those strong winds. His mouth and his eyes are like full of sticks and bits of leaf. And he's kind of trying to spit them out at the same time as he's still trying to act.
He does say, it was like when he's recounting what happened to him, and he says like there was a wind, strong wind. It was hot. Felt good.
No, I think it's really abrupt. But I like the way it just kind of the stick is there and it just. Yeah. I quite liked it. Like I thought it was not without its charms.
It's worth noting though that when this happens, the only person privy to this is his son, Tony.
Tony, yeah.
Who doesn't age at all in the intervening 3 years.
That's true.
But he sees his father essentially taken by aliens, but no one believes him. And they think he has concocted this story as a way to kind of soften the blow of his father leaving him, which is pretty heavy.
I suppose it is.
Yeah, it's got this weird mix of like family drama with sort of unhappy family drama that's a little bit soapy. TV drama almost, mixed with this weird alien stuff. So it's right from the beginning. It's got this very sort of strange atmosphere,
which I heard was completely accidental. They didn't realise that it had a strange atmosphere until they actually put it together, which I think is quite charming. But yeah, Tony, he's been having a bit of trouble with this.
Well, I think it's worth mentioning that this is presented in the form of like a nightmare / flashback, isn't it?
Of course, yeah.
Because Tony kind of wakes from that, and at that point you get a little bit of a picture of the home situation, and kind of tying into what you were saying, Rob, about the family situation, where you've got the stepdad figures, Joe, right?
Joe, yeah,
who is obviously kind of looking for a bit of approval and a bit of validation from Tony.
Yeah,
you get a little bit of that, and then we get our first real look at the creatures.
Well, pretty quickly. A lot happens very, very fast. The dad's abducted. Tony wakes up from a dream. We get this glimpse into what's the mum's name?
Covered in blood as well. Tony wakes up covered in blood.
Of course he does.
Another thing that happens very early on. Yeah, doesn't he say something about him feeling all sticky or something? And then they pull the covers away and he's covered in blood.
But then they bring that doctor out to have a look at him, and the doctor doesn't seem in the least bit fussed by it at all. He's very accepting. In fact, he just kind of tosses it away as, well, it's not Tony's blood.
Yeah.
No, hang the fuck on. Whose blood is it?
Because my favourite line from when the doctor shows up and after he's been covered in blood, and he says, if he'd lost this much blood, he'd be too weak to tell us anything. And it's like, yeah, okay, that's a fair assessment, but also whose blood is it? Yeah, he's not really flinching. So the first real exposure we get to the creature is we have the couple in the car.
It's also worth mentioning that XTRO actually has no relation to the film in any way, shape or form. The title is never mentioned. There's never a creature called XTRO.
But in the American trailer, they do say, they call him XTRO. They do say it's XTRO. He has been away, but now he has come back.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, actually, the video I shared to Instagram.
It's like implying his name is XTRO. Of course, that's not true. I mean, XTRO is just a cool title. It just makes you think of extraterrestrials, I guess. But I kind of like the idea of that alien being called XTRO. I think in my head, I would like him to be called XTRO.
Yeah, I'm quite into that.
Like the shark being called Jaws.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get this really kind of Hellraiser-y scene coming up just after the blood scene, where we're going to stick with XTRO, I suppose, here.
I'm happy with it.
Where XTRO kind of rises up from the forest floor, much like Frank being reborn in Hellraiser, and it's an interesting creature design, to say the least.
Yeah, it's someone sort of doing like a backward sort of crab thing.
He's not even. It's not even as well accomplished as a crab.
It's true. Well, he looks kind of tired. It's kind of just sort of it's like a crab thing, but with the middle bit sort of sagging, isn't it? It's like, but it is quite a striking thing, though, isn't it? Because it's like it is this kind of weird backward, impossible, but knees bending backward kind of appearing thing.
I actually quite like the creature. It put me in mind of the last episode was In the Mouth of Madness. Styles in that turns into this kind of crawling creature with the head on backwards. It put me in mind of that. I love that as this couple are kind of driving through the woods, they pass XTRO on the side of the road and they bump it with the car. That's why Tony bleeds. Yeah. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's the implication, I'm guessing. Or maybe just the blood is just the kind of, I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't make any, well, looking for sense is maybe futile, but that would seem like an accurate interpretation.
There's that really cool shot where they are driving past that has now turned up in a million online alien conspiracy videos as a real bit of footage.
Amazing.
Which is quite charming.
Yeah, I didn't know this until we dug into the extras.
XTRO's extras.
Yeah. I didn't realise that shot had been reappropriated as a kind of hoax, real footage of aliens and stuff.
Like really weird sort of electronic classical music in the car as well.
Yeah, that is weird.
Actually, I think we can briefly touch on the score in general here. It's quite aggressively jagged.
It's a very weird score. But that sort of adds... I think that is part of the atmosphere of the film is down to the music as well, because it has this. Harry Bromley Davenport, the director, did the score, right? It's like a one-man.
That's correct. Yeah.
It's a one-man score. It kind of does a John Carpenter with it, and but it's like a really cheap-sounding synth score, and it reminds me of the kind of score you would get in like public information films at that time. That's kind of part of its just weird sort of atmosphere that it creates, and it's quite shrill as well, and quite thin sounding.
Yeah,
it feels really sort of, and it's almost a bit light-hearted at times.
Yeah.
So it just has this really weird. It's just one of many things in the film that just sort of jar. That give it this strange atmosphere.
And there are a lot of things in the film that I find quite jarring. Yeah, we get this bit pretty soon after this. After obviously the guys hit XTRO with a car, he gets out to investigate. His girlfriend does not take advice well. He tells her multiple times to stay in the car and she will not do that. But he goes off into the woods where XTRO is lying prone and still like a statue. Now, I don't understand the workings, the logic of this at all, but XTRO wakes up, fires his tongue into his under eye area.
Yeah.
And that's enough that's him.
I think that there's something about that I feel kind of serves in the same way we were talking about the score, I think see that as a moment.
Uh-huh.
It serves the overarching weirdness of the film in a way that feels like a happy accident. Because he could have killed him or attacked him in any way possible there. But jabbing him in the under eyes with his tongue is just such an unbelievably eccentric decision. And there's something about that I find kind of pretty endearing.
Instantly fatal.
Yeah, instantly fatal. It's like every single choice that has been made in the film is just a really weird, off-the-wall choice. So like you say, it could have killed him in any manner of ways. There's something a little bit almost alien like that they're trying to get at there, maybe. The way that this thing shoots out of its mouth. But it seems to just kind of make his under eyes bleed.
Yeah.
and he's dead. And that was on the back cover of the video. I really remember that image on the back cover of the VHS.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it was. There was 3 pictures. That's another thing about this film, that the VHS cover was a major part of its kind of mystique for me, because I used to see it at the video shop, way before I rented it out, and that cover always jumped out at me. And you've got that, the creature, XTRO himself, is on the cover.
Rob, just for context, how old were you when you first saw this, and how old were you when you first kind of spotted it and kind of got curious about it? If you can remember.
I must have been, I don't know, like when I first saw it in the video shop, I was probably like 9 or something. And then when I finally saw the film, I was probably about 11.
Well, this film, XTRO inadvertently got embroiled in the Video Nasties debacle of 1984.
Yeah.
It was on, it's kind of skirted the list without making any of the kind of main 2 lists of Video Nasties, but it was... it got treated quite badly for a while and viewed with some suspicion.
But that probably just made it, even more popular.
Yeah, but when you watch it, pretty much it's pretty unfounded.
You could say that the birth scene is pretty out there. If you were that way inclined to be looking for things to get upset about in that era, I would say there's probably a couple of things you could point at. I mean, in the context of the Video Nasties thing, where pretty much anything even remotely bleeding would get attacked, but there is a pretty out there birth scene.
It is pretty heavy.
Yeah, there's a couple of things like that I think fall into that category.
So I mean, we go back pretty quickly to the girl in the car, and she has now seen the creature and jumped back in the car. Somehow got her foot entangled in the steering wheel.
Yeah,
which again I don't quite understand.
It's the byproduct of a very hasty escape attempt.
It doesn't seem an artistic decision or a sensible one, but that seems like a kind of ongoing thread throughout. And then we come to something which I think is probably one of the most traumatic things in the whole film, when Tony walks in on his mum and Joe having sex, which I think is possibly more scarring than seeing your father abducted by aliens.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest trauma visited on any character.
Yeah.
And it's relatable. And the mum tries to play it off as, you've had a bad dream. Go back to your bed. This is all a dream. Pretty horrible.
It's around about this point that we get to we have the woman who appears on kind of unannounced, the woman in the shower, of course, with the dog. I guess that, and then but it's like pretty quickly off the back of that is where you get to Tony waking up covered in blood. Yeah. And another recurring theme on this podcast with characters is incompetent people who work in the medical profession. And I think the doctor falls in the category here, who's very quick to play down the fact that because it's not Tony's blood, there's no real cause for concern, and also kind of transparently blames the ex-husband as well.
Yeah, he blames a lot of it on the missing father.
So they're saying somehow the trauma of the father leaving has made blood appear on the son. That's like the theory that he's putting forward.
Blood is physically manifested on him.
And this man is a doctor.
Because that happens, doesn't it?
Yeah. That is a ludicrous.
If I had a pound, man,
The mum is quite incredulous though. She's not really buying the doctor's line at all here. She is like, well, okay, but doesn't seem quite right. And then we get the blonde actress with a dog.
So she wakes up from the alien attack and immediately...
Oh, no.
Oh.
She doesn't wake up from an alien attack. No. You're jumping way ahead here. She lets her dog out, and the dog runs off barking, and she manages to bring it back in at this point. And when she does, it all goes very red, very Suspiria, and from underneath a dining table emerges the bad rubbery hands of XTRO. Now, I'm not sure why he does this, because are we to assume that the creature, as we see it, is the dad?
Well, this is open to interpretation, isn't it? Because it seems to me that it's some kind of vessel. It's almost like the alien father of the dad or something, because it kind of impregnates the woman, and then the birth that follows is Sam returning.
Yeah.
So if the alien itself is Sam, which it seems like maybe it is, because later on in the film he starts turning back into it again or something.
Yeah.
That's the way. That's certainly my reading of it. It's good to know we're on the same wavelength.
So he kind of ejaculates himself into. Yeah.
Isn't that what every ejaculation is?
Yeah, I guess so.
But the alien fires off this kind of prehensile penis proboscis type thing onto the woman's mouth, so it impregnates her via the mouth.
Yeah.
And then we come to a scene that is pretty full on, I think, even by the standards of some of the stuff that was around at the time. It is quite full on.
The birthing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty graphic.
Yeah. When you're a kid watching that, in the middle of the day, on a summer's day, with the curtains drawn... Like I was when I was about 11, and then that scene comes on. That leaves an impression.
Yeah. They even put in his chewing away his own umbilical cord and stuff like that. It's pretty heavy.
Yeah, it's full on.
I think it's around this point we get introduced to Annalise,
Mariam Dabo.
Future Bond girl.
Future Bond girl from Living Daylights. A highlight of the film. Actually, did that birth, just jumping back very quickly, did that birth scene remind anyone of Ace Ventura?
Oh, Ace Ventura 2.
I've not seen that.
There's a bit in that where Ace Ventura has a mechanical rhinoceros.
That's Ace Ventura 2 when Danger Calls.
Yeah, on the African savannah, and he has to birth himself out of the rhinoceros's anus because it's too warm inside the rhino.
That hadn't occurred to me. When you've said it, I won't be able to unsee it.
But it's also around this time, Mitch, that you said to me, and I wrote it down, I fucking hate Tony.
Yeah, I feel like I'm being a little bit hard on Tony, but like in the extras, in the documentary and stuff on that we were watching, the director, he talks about this a little bit. And said that he thinks that there's not a great deal wrong with Tony's performance in it, but he's very much a kind of like trained child actor, which means that all of his lines are very loud and very deliberate. Yeah. Which I think is probably fair enough. Yeah.
And he does play like a character from Oliver.
Yeah. Well, also, if you notice, a lot of his lines are delivered off screen as well.
Yeah, I think there's some pretty heavy ADR going on.
A little bit suspicious that, quite a lot of his dialogue is off screen.
Now, prior to the introduction of Annalise, do we actually see her before the scene where she's in bed with that guy?
Yeah, we do.
We do?
Yeah, I think that it's just around the time that the doctor's there. I think she appears.
She is introduced proper, I suppose, in an awkward sex scene.
Yes, having a sexual encounter with, at this point, a mystery person.
Who we later know is called Michael.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really matter.
My main takeaway from the intro scene there is that Michael is quite bad at oral sex.
Because he's just like licking her thigh.
Yeah, I feel like he's like maybe kind of like a few inches wide of the mark.
She seems to be enjoying whatever he's doing though, but yeah, he's
different strokes for different folks. I'm not here to judge.
Some pretty serious thigh lingus going on. Also, my wife pointed out that he had a very red arse, which he does. And then they go into the kitchen, and assuming he has just been performing oral sex on Annalise, he drinks milk out of their fridge straight from the bottle.
Wow.
Which I think is quite disrespectful.
It's a bit of a slap in the face.
Yeah.
It's around this point that we jump to Joe and Rachel. We get an understanding of their relationship. So Rachel the mom, Joe the stepdad, they are in business together.
I didn't get that at all. I didn't know they were in business together. I just thought it was part of the house.
Oh no, I kind of assumed that they were that they had a photography business.
Don't know, Rob.
I didn't get that. I mean, it seems that Joe is running some kind of photography business from their house. I didn't get the feeling that they're in business together, but maybe they are.
Okay, yeah. But at this point, Tony goes missing, briefly.
Well, he does, but prior to that, the now clothed Sam has been wandering the streets, sees Tony out wandering with Annalise, and follows them home. Presumably that is not the same house that... Or it is, no, it is his house.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely his house, because he's pretty annoyed at the fact that he's been replaced in the family home.
There's also the bit when he phones the house up from a phone box and the phone handle melts and drips.
Yeah.
Which is a really effective moment, I think. It really shows you that there's something really weird and sort of otherworldly about this guy, even though we know he's just been born out of a woman's vagina as a full-grown man, but even aside from that, he's come back changed because he's melting, phones. And that's a really good effect as well. I think the effects in this film should be noted as being pretty inventive for a low budget film.
Oh, absolutely. Although they had the whole film was $475,000, Mitch.
Yeah, something like that. It's in that neck of the woods.
Yeah, I think we looked it up, but they just literally put a burning hot wire inside a phone and told an actor to hold it in his own bare hand.
Now you're hitting on a good thing there, though, Rob, because I think that the effects are great. Pretty much, I think. The creature stuff I think is pretty good, but a lot of the incidental stuff I think comes out really great.
Yeah, it's just also there's just a really weird attention to detail in the effects. All of the textures are just very weird, and often when you see an effect in a film from that era, you kind of go, oh well, that's a cool effect. But here the effects, they're well done, but there's something like really, really gross about them as well. A lot of the time, there's something about the detail in there that always feels like it's just like the textures are just a bit odd and a bit weird and a bit pussy or a bit gelatinous or something.
Yeah,
everything about it it's just the emphasis is just slightly on the weirder side.
I think a lot of stuff kind of contributes really kind of in a weird kind of passive way. A lot of elements kind of contribute to a lot of incidental weirdness.
Yeah.
That kind of pulls together the overall kind of really eccentric atmosphere that kind of runs through the whole thing.
But I'd say up to
details as well, like Tony playing with his action man and making it stamp on the butter, which I find just a bit gross. Just like little details like that just make you feel just a little bit like there's a bit of sick at the back of your throat. even like aside from the horror stuff.
Yeah. Outside of kind of like your big set pieces and your big scare moments and stuff like that, there's just kind of a lot of things like that are just kind of incidentally just really kind of disquieting.
And there's something just a bit horrible about Tony generally, isn't there? There's something kind of just...
Yeah, there's something kind of bullshit about his entire presence.
And just like his very short trousers that like short beige trousers and pink sausage legs. All those little details that he looks like the kind of kid that you'd get again, going back to public information films. He is that kid who gets electrocuted on the pylons in public information films.
He's the cautionary tale guy.
I don't know. It feels like the brat one in those old films. Like he's the one who's kind of like, "I'll do my own thing, Mister." And then you're like, oh, "Fuck you, Zach."
Oh, let's go and play down the canal.
Sploosh.
Then it gets really weird because it's kind of been, the atmosphere is already sort of unsettling, I think, by this stage.
Mm-hmm.
Just the score and the mix of like, feels like almost like it's a sort of episode of early EastEnders or something.
Yeah.
Mixed weird, the gore and the birth scene and all that. Also, another little moment that sticks in the back of my throat is after the woman's given birth to Sam, and the dog is eating the remains of the alien in the corner of the room, and the alien has been reduced to this kind of what just looks like a load of grey dog food in the corner of the room.
Yeah,
that's the detail that it's just like that just makes me feel just a bit associating dog food with an alien creature. It just makes me, it's just these little details that just make me feel just a little bit sick.
This is actually like it's something that I hadn't really considered until you said it, but see, now you've said it, I can't unsee it through loads of things that I'm thinking about from when we watched it. There are so many moments of incidental grossness on various levels.
Yeah.
And a general quietly discomfort in air that kind of runs across the whole thing, I think.
And the sound and the soundtrack is very much a part of that as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely, definitely.
While we're on... sorry.
Yeah, on you go,
Mitch, sorry.
I think that, like, just because, obviously, I think that one of the film's first really outrightly fucking insane moments is just around the corner. Mm-hmm. But see, when you get back to the house and stuff, and I know that you said that some of the kind of the family drama element of it is a little bit soapy, but see the scene when they're in the living room and you can see kind of like Joe is obviously really bristling at the imposition and stuff like that. I think some of that stuff's pretty well done. I think that some of the conflict in there is pretty decent that moment.
Pretty heavy. Sam throws a bottle at him.
Yeah, you crazy maniac.
You fucking...
You're out of your fucking mind.
That leads on to another disgusting moment when Sam goes into Tony's bedroom and is caught eating the eggs of Tony's pet snake, Harry.
Yeah.
What doesn't look like any kind of egg albumin I've ever seen, but squishes out this really gross grey gunge into his mouth, and then that's the kind of catalyst, I suppose, for Tony realising there's something pretty major going on with his dad.
But again, it's the detail. It's grey yolk.
Yeah.
That's just disgusting. Grey yolk, and the way he's like sucking it off his wrist. It's just really wrong.
I thought this bit was like straight up fucking revolting.
Yeah.
When like a lot of the kind of goes up to him, he's kind of like savaging it is absolutely disgusting. And so Tony takes off running.
Mm-hmm. And Sam chases him because he wants to have this relationship with his son, for better or worse, which leads to another one of the film's most uncomfortable scenes.
I was not ready for this.
You were eating Harry's eggs. I needed them.
Yeah.
And just that, the whole kind of almost a seduction that happens, which is just, again, it's just really wrong. And then sort of sucking that weird eggy blue cheese lump out of his son's neck. Again, it's just the texture of the effect, that thing. And again, maybe I'm associating this with like being like 11 when I saw it, but all of the textures, like that always just looked like a piece of blue cheese. When he basically puts his mouth onto Tony's neck, which is kind of a slightly sexual thing.
Yeah, it comes across quite sexual. There's an element of enjoying it.
Yeah, he's closing his eyes are rolling back into his head a little bit.
Yeah, there's like savouring going on.
Yeah, there's a bit. Yeah, there is. A savouring's a good word, Mitch. Yeah, there seems to be a bit of that going on where he's not entirely uncomfortable with what's going on, although we are.
And it's the way Sam very delicately just sort of moves his shirt down over his shoulder so that he can gain access to his neck. It's all a bit slow and considered, and then starts sucking his neck, but then starts sucking this lump of, I don't even know how to describe it. I mean, it's so weird.
We'll keep blue cheese as the...
It looks like an egg coming out of his neck that's made of blue cheese. That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah.
And it's throbbing.
There we go. So if you can imagine that, listeners, a throbbing egg of blue cheese, you paint quite a picture, Rob.
Yeah, that was vivid. It's powerful imagery.
But yeah, it's all there in the film.
Poor Harry doesn't last long. Poor Harry the snake. After this, he finds his way into the neighbour downstairs via a dodgy light fitting and is pretty quickly dispatched with a meat tenderizer.
Can we just talk about the neighbour for a second?
Yes. Lou Beale.
Yeah, Lou Beale. Anna Wing, so this was before, I guess. Yeah, it was been fairly shortly before EastEnders began.
Yeah. I think EastEnders was, I want to say 87, 84, 87?
Yeah, 84, 85 or something? I don't know. But not long before anyway. So, of course, again, watching that a few years later when EastEnders was really big, and you've got Lou Beale is right in the middle of this movie, playing a role that has one of the most memorable death scenes in a horror film, I would say.
Yeah, I would say it's particularly bizarre. I think, it all comes to bear. She does kill Harry with a meat tenderizer after finding him in her salad, which I guess would take anybody by surprise. But then, rather than just embrace it and just chuck it in the bin, which is what I would do, I would never make any bones of the fact that I had killed this snake. What I certainly wouldn't do is put it in a poly bag and take it back and present it to the child like so much dog shit.
That's a savage moment. Yeah.
But that's just as well. She's not just hit it a couple of times. I mean, she brings back. That's a bag of blood.
Yeah. Snake flavored blood.
She has smashed it into. She's smashed it into blood.
It's just a bag of awful.
She must have been hitting that snake for hours to get it to just become some blood.
Which means then she also scooped it all up, scraped it into that bag, and rather than just bin it, and nothing would have happened, she gives it back to the broken little boy.
It's a lot of concentrated effort in the name of presentation.
Yeah, it's a pretty cold way to tell someone they need to take better care of their pets. A life lesson.
But she does get her just desserts pretty sharpish after that. And like you say, Rob, you're quite right. The death scene here, there was nothing they could have prepared me for this. This is flat out bonkers.
It's bonkers on numerous levels as well.
Yeah, at this point it shifts gears from being an alien film to something quite different, something that doesn't really have a parallel.
Yeah, Rob, I want to hand this over to you because I think you'll be able to describe it better than we will. But when you kick off with Tony's kind of circus nightmare into what happens with the death of the old lady, this is pretty remarkable stuff.
So, after Sam has sucked a blue cheese egg out of his son's neck,
yes,
his son Tony now has certain powers, I guess, telekinetic powers. He's able to bring various toys in his bedroom to life. There's a clown that comes to life. And then tying in with the grudge he holds against the neighbor who's killed his beloved snake, he sends his action man down to the flat downstairs to kill her. But the action man has become like a 6-foot action man. So it's like an action man as big as like a very tall, fully grown man shows up at her door, cuts the lock with bolt cutters, or first of all blows the handle off with an explosive device, cuts the door open with bolt cutters, and then comes into the flat and then starts hunting her down with a bayonet.
Yeah, and what appears to be an operational machine gun and bayonet.
Yeah. So maybe jumping just ahead to the death itself. Mrs. Goodman enjoys eating chocolates. And that's set up earlier on. We see her in her just before Harry the Snake shows up, she's sitting down and she's got a little dish of chocolates and she's eating them. So cut to later on when the full-size action man is in her room stalking her. She somehow manages to hide under the sofa, but it's one of those sofas where the base is like really close to the floor. So she couldn't possibly have been able to hide under that sofa. The sofa must be hollow in order for her to fit under it. So she's hiding under this sofa while a fully grown action man is in her house trying to kill her with a bayonet. And what gives her hiding place away is that she reaches out. So in the sort of panic, onto the floor, she reaches her hand out from under the sofa to get a chocolate. and the action man sees it, and then that's how she gets killed. So she's like, think of this for a second from her perspective. I'm hiding under my sofa. There's an action man in my lounge trying to kill me. Oh, I really fancy a chocolate right now. So she reaches her hand out to retrieve a chocolate. Yeah. And the action man sees it. That's just like, that is genius.
When you say it like that, Rob, it all sounds a bit ludicrous.
They've set it up earlier on. They've made a point of setting up a scene earlier on to show her how much she enjoys eating these chocolates.
Yeah, it's a callback.
It's not like a fluke. It's like, no, she really likes chocolates, even when there's an action man trying to kill her.
Yeah, like she likes chocolate so much that it betrays her survival instinct at the crucial moment.
Yeah. Chocolate is ultimately her downfall.
I really want one of those chocolates right now.
That's got to be some good chocolate.
It better have been.
It's not something...
It's worth dying for.
Clearly.
That's the decision she had to make.
And there's a great scream that she does when she gets stabbed as well.
Would you care to replicate it?
Yeah, I will. It goes...
Solid.
Right, okay.
That's a minimum 8 out of 10 effort there.
I'd practiced that, so if you watch the film and play that back, it's pretty accurate.
Yeah, right on the money. So
I'm actually going to overdub the film with you doing your Tony impressions, your impressions of Joe, Mrs. Goodman's death scream.
I could dub the whole thing.
So I think one thing we didn't touch on at the start when the guy gets killed at the side of the road, the under eye jabber.
Yeah.
XTRO steals the clothes, which is kind of pivotal in the next scene.
He stole clothes. He happened upon clothes which were full of money and photographs.
The photograph of the girl from the start.
The girl who dies in the car with her foot in the steering wheel. That's just a MacGuffin to bring it around, otherwise he would never have got caught.
That's so true.
Joe finds, because the body of the girl in the car shows up later on, and Joe, the new boyfriend, finds the photograph and then looks at the headlines and goes, hang on.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't like Sam anyway.
Yeah.
So that's his sort of motive then to...
Yeah, that's like a stick to beat him with, isn't it?
Obviously, at that point it becomes he's run away with this woman, therefore tying it, rather than being on a spaceship, therefore tying into the myth that has been perpetrated about Sam since his disappearance. There's a panther in this film.
Yeah,
which is just where we're getting to, isn't it?
So he's got this clown, hasn't he? And it's like a little wooden clown toy.
Yeah, that's right.
Tony has, and he brings it to life, and it's got when it comes to life, it's like this midget clown with like a deadly yo-yo
and a rubber hammer.
Yeah, and a rubber hammer. Yeah.
Which seems quite deadly because he's able to take Michael down with the rubber hammer. I don't really.
But this is the point where the film really starts to go weird because.
Well, this is the point. Right. Okay.
Yeah, I think that this is the second obvious gear shift in the eccentricity stakes.
Yeah, because by now you've got a dwarf clown running around in what's a science fiction horror movie, and you've got a full size action man, and you've got a Black Panther that's running around the house, and you've got a tank that comes alive as well.
Yeah, she tries to escape by throwing a towel over it. Yeah, that's the universal method for escaping a tank.
Foolproof.
There's another really weird bit that's quite unsettling when Annalise dies, and Tony kind of does the reverse of what his dad does, but he's sucking the blue cheese egg from her stomach. Yeah. That's a pretty sexualized moment as well, I think.
It's another one of those weird, slightly disturbing moments where you've got a child sucking the stomach of a young woman.
Yeah, like an adult woman. Yeah.
Yeah, in a slightly sexual way, and weird wormy things are sort of weird, like worms and beads are sort of appearing on her stomach.
See, I kind of feel like, now we're talking about it back, and they're kind of digging into the minutiae of these moments. I'm just really starting to really consider how unbelievably eccentric this is. And how many of the choices in there, big or small, are really kind of bold ones?
Yeah, it's like everything is just off and strange about it. It's just the details in it are just very, very weird. I think the effects in it are it's like one of those things where all of the elements somehow, whether it's a fluke or not, all come together and clash in strange ways. And every level of it, from the acting to the soundtrack to the sound editing to the weird quirks of characters deciding they want some chocolates when they're about to get killed, to effects reminding you of food. XTRO's eyes, the alien's eyes, kind of always remind me of jam. It's just everything about it's got this weird associations with, like, I think that's part of what makes it feel just stick in the back of your throat a little bit and feel a bit disgusting. And then, of course, as well, by the way, we've also got Sam sucking gas, which is another just unexplained thing.
Yeah, that's offered absolutely no explanation, which I'm fine with, because I think I prefer it in isolation as a moment of strangeness. So yeah, just to pull this linear story wise.
Right. Okay. Good luck.
Yeah, it's ambitious at this point, but like, so Tony's left alone as Annalise kind of goes to bed with Michael. Michael, yeah. Yeah, and then
lie down, she says, doesn't she?
That's right. Yeah, I'll lie down. Air quotes.
Have a hide and seek.
And it's at this point that you get Tony giving Annalise the Sam treatment, if you like, the blue cheese treatment.
Yeah,
and it's Michael that gets chased by the tank initially, isn't it? And
I think it's Michael.
And he successfully evades the tank long enough to get confronted by the panther in the lobby.
Now, I don't remember seeing a panther in the kid's bedroom, in Tony's bedroom.
No, didn't believe so.
Presumably there is one.
There is one, yeah.
On
the same desk as the clown toy, there is a black panther. It is rooted in another of Tony's toys.
So I am relieved that tracks logically.
Yeah, I've never noticed that before. I've always just been like, oh right, there's a panther now. Okay. Yeah. While all this is going on, Sam and what's the mum's name? Rachel have gone back to the farmhouse from the beginning to investigate what happened to Sam and try to kind of jog his memory. At this point, parts of his hair are starting to fall out and things are looking a bit weird. And then there's a really weird, awful sex scene where essentially a decomposing Sam continues to thrust long after being identified as some kind of melting creature.
It's a very awkward sex scene. It's a sort of embarrassing sex scene.
Awkward is a word.
Awkward as a word, yeah.
I thought this was great.
Yeah.
In terms like effect-wise, story-wise, it was really fucking creepy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that like the reactions in scene are great.
I think subconsciously that's where I've lifted the bit from Split, where he's sitting on the bed and he's got the big sticky gross wound on his back.
Oh yeah.
I think that's where I've stolen it from.
I'm pretty sure I've subconsciously stolen all kinds of things from XTRO. It's just one of those films that has this weird atmosphere to it.
Again, though, it's very painty, very yellow and green and red. It's like very vivid, the wounds on him.
Like primary colours.
Very psychedelic.
Bizarre.
And also towards the end, the lighting scheme generally starts to change as well, with the overturned fridge that's full of weird green mashed potato. It looks like
that's a weird tableau altogether.
It just gets weirder and weirder, and just again the textures. But we're jumping ahead because there's the Annalise ends up as a kind of cocoon thing in the bar
with a weird vagina thing going on.
Yeah. She almost kind of, it almost seems like she becomes like kind of almost one giant like surrogate / uterus for alien eggs.
Yeah, depending which ending you've seen, I think that probably comes to bear.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So she gets knocked out, and then like basically it's pretty much the next time we see her, she's in that kind of condition, right?
Well, she gets knocked out. Then Tony comes and sucks worms and beads, or is he sucking them? I don't know what's going on, but he's sucking. But then weird things are going under her skin. So he's like changing her with his mouth into this weird cocoon thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It's sort of got like cobwebs all over it.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That was my. Yeah, it looks like she's like kind of like totally like mummified by cobwebs. When you see her in her kind of like final form. Yeah,
but she's also turned into a weird cocoon thing, insecty kind of egg machine.
Cocoon is a better word than uterus. I think that's better serves the image. I think cocoon is right.
I would say it better serves the image than uterus.
Jesus Christ.
And then it kind of ends quickly. It ends really abruptly. So Tony gets taken to the farm by Joe.
Yep.
Yeah, that's after he's been. They've made the Annalise cocoon lay loads of eggs.
Yeah.
Which are essentially water bombs. They look like balloons full of water. And then they put them in the fridge, but the fridge is now full of. Well, the dwarf clown empties a bucket of what looks like green sort of
kind of porridge,
rice pudding or porridge, into it, and then puts the eggs into the fridge. Again, it's just this association with food. I think that just makes me feel a bit sick, which is part of its charm. I think.
Yeah, it's quite effective at making you feel a bit dirty.
Yeah.
But we get to the farm after this, and Tony is obviously now an alien. He's reintroduced to his father. His father, by this point, is a skeleton almost.
This was a great image.
Yeah,
when you see them together like that,
yeah,
and they're both kind of like in their advanced alien forms. I thought that was great.
And Joe is killed off pretty quickly in a kind of scannersy sequence, so they can now do that too. They can use their.
He screams and makes Joe's ears bleed. And then he dies.
Pretty unceremoniously. And then the XTROs, now I guess we're using plural.
I believe the term is XTRO.
XTRO, okay.
XTRO and Son.
Oh, God.
XTRO and Son, yeah.
They return home in the bright white light together.
They sort of disappear in a kind of white triangle that sort of disappears. And then Rachel's left behind and she just kind of sits there, doesn't she?
Yeah, she has a moment kind of absorbing.
I guess she's got a lot to assimilate by this point, not least of all her horrifying sexual encounter, the death of her wannabe fiance, because he does say, I'm going to marry her. So he's gone. Her son is now gross and gone, and her husband is clearly an alien and gone.
When you reel it off in list form, I think if it was me, I'd need a minute as well.
Yeah.
She takes a minute to sit on the grass and then goes back home. And this is where whichever ending you've kind of watched comes to pass.
Yeah, we watched both for the sake of preparation. But so in the first cut that we see, in the cut that we watched, in the second cut, she heads through the door and she gets kind of swamped by. Is it like it's kind of almost looks like kind of Tony ghosts?
Rob, have you seen the version with the Tony ghosts?
Yeah, I mean the version I originally saw and the version that was on VHS that was released in the UK had the alternative ending, which was the egg ending.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Do you want to just describe that?
Well, the ending that was finally released, I think the multiple Tonys version was the original ending that was shot and it was rejected, and then they shot a new ending, which was the version that went out onto with the release, which is Rachel comes back, goes into the apartment, which is now kind of glowing white.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the panther is still hanging around. And she goes and finds the fridge, and it's full of eggs, and she picks one of them up, and a sort of alien hand or arm shoots out of the egg and goes onto her mouth, very similar to the alien, how the alien hand impregnated the woman in the bar.
The blonde lady.
And then she kind of falls over, and the end of the arm is just kind of like a bunch of entrails and balloons and stuff. Just and then the door slams, and then it ends.
Of the two endings, I think that's the stronger one personally. Do you have a preference yourself?
I think it's probably the stronger one. I mean, I like the weirdness of the multiple Tonys one because it's just like what's going on. It's just another one of those moments where so is that implying that all of those eggs had a new Tony in it or something?
I guess then it would potentially play into the XTRO thing earlier when XTRO, if we imagine the thing on all fours, impregnates the lady in the shack and she then gives birth to a Tony. Oh, sorry, a Sam.
Yeah.
So I guess perhaps then if an XTRO impregnates someone, they then give birth to something that looks like, I don't know.
I thought you were onto something there.
What is the life cycle of these XTRO creatures? Because it seems to be there's multiple life cycles and very complicated ways in which they reproduce. There's you get sent back down in alien form, you ejaculate yourself through a weird sucker hand thing into a woman's throat. She then gives birth to a full-size version of your human self. You then go and hang out at your old home. You get your son and his dwarf mate, who was a toy babysitter, turn her into an egg machine, which then lays loads of eggs, which then turn into loads of versions of your son.
I think that's actually quite a succinct wrap-up of the story as a whole. But yeah, that's as good as any explanation I can think of for the the life cycle of the XTRO.
Yeah, I would say that's reasonable. I would say, like I say, of the two endings, I would say I prefer the egg ending, but I do quite like the way, now you've said it, I like the idea of the multiple Tonys one and the way that, I mean, don't get me wrong, I feel like we're reaching a little bit, but I think it kind of...
But I mean, again, you think of the Aphex Twin, Come to Daddy video. That original ending of XTRO got there first. It's a very similar kind of atmosphere, just these weird kids who've all got the same face.
Trailblazing.
Crowding around this woman, it's their mother, and the way that they're all going, aren't they like saying "mama, mama" or something?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's right. Yeah.
I don't really understand it, and I can see why they did reshoot it, but there is something quite weird and sort of scary about it as well.
Now, Rob, I know you watched the director's cut in preparation for this. How did that compare to I didn't get round to watching it, but how did that compare to the original version that pretty much everyone will know? I
would say, because on the new Blu-ray, there is something called the 2018 director's cut. I wouldn't say it's cut differently. It's mainly color graded very differently. It's much more contrasty,
right?
And there's loads of it's almost like Harry Bromley Davenport did a bit of a George Lucas on it, and he's gone back and did CGI, like extra CGI, but it's like really low rent, like After Effects stuff that he's kind of put over the film. For example, in the Action Man scene, it's much darker. There's CGI smoke in it and CGI explosions and stuff going on. Some of the scenes have extra zooms, digital zooms in them, and digital camera judder. Basically, it's best left alone.
Yeah, that sounds fucking awful.
No, it sounds like it would like kind of take away from a lot of the stuff about it that's kind of charming.
Yeah, it's sort of interesting to see like where just creatively Harry Bromley Davenport is at nowadays, looking at it, and it's the weird thing about XTRO, because when I first saw it, I thought, wow, this is like a really interesting. Even at the time and years later, I still feel that way. It's a very, very weird and unusual film, and the trajectory of the director who made it, he didn't really make anything else that was anything like this later on. I mean, I've only seen the other two XTRO sequels, but they're nothing like this.
Yeah, it is worth mentioning that it does have two sequels, unofficial sequels.
XTRO 2, The Second Encounter, and XTRO 3, Watch the Skies. Same director. He hung on to the name legally. Right. So he was able to make sequels, but they're story-wise, they're nothing to do with the
Extroverse.
The Extroverse, yeah.
Yeah,
Extroverse. That's good.
There you go,
Rob. I'm glad you picked this one. It's an interesting one, and I think that, like you say, it's pretty timely because it's probably about to hit a new audience potentially with the second set release. But also, I think that as years go by, and it kind of feels like attitudes to it are kind of softening. It's good that it's getting this release that's going to people are going to see it and maybe appreciate it again. Just in the measure of this conversation, I've taken a little bit more out of it because I enjoyed it. But I think that I probably didn't give enough didn't give enough airtime to, and it's maybe a happy accident. The overall atmosphere of it could be this kind of really serendipitous convergence of stuff.
I do want to say, Mitch, that I wrote down some things that you said while we were watching this the other day.
Okay.
One of them, towards the end, when Sam's melting, you said, "What am I looking at?" which I thought was quite charming.
Yeah, I'll stand by that.
Obviously, you can add on the earlier, I hate Tony. I fucking hate Tony.
Which, in fairness, I'm gonna retract that, at least in part. I think that I'm probably giving Tony a little bit of a bad rap there.
He's been through a lot.
He has, he's been up against it. He's been through the mill.
So, Mitch, what did you think of the film overall?
I quite liked it.
So, sitting on the fence?
Yeah, I quite liked it. I would say that, like I say, this happens quite a bit with these. Rob, my knowledge is sadly lacking when standing up next to somebody like Andy. So a lot of the time when people are choosing films for this, it's a first viewing for me. And a couple of times, and I would include XTRO in this, I would say that like I watch it and I'm like, yeah, okay. I haven't watched anything so far for this that I've out and out disliked. And I watched this and I was like, yeah, okay, I kind of get it. I would say that I didn't necessarily identify with the kind of the cult following or anything like that. I would say that this conversation has brought me a little bit closer to understanding that. I would say that's the main takeaway I would have. I would say I still kind of find it quite difficult to quantify exactly what I think of it, but I can see myself revisiting it now, which is maybe not necessarily something that I would have thought I would have done immediately after I'd watched it for the first time.
A friend of mine, Dominic, described it as the British Eraserhead.
Wow.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, I've seen it's not an unfair comparison.
No.
But I mean, I've seen XTRO a few times prior to this, and revisiting it in the super duper highfalutin second sight Blu-ray, it's every bit as inscrutable and impenetrable as it always has been. I don't think that in the 20 years, maybe more than that, since I saw XTRO for the first time, I don't think I've gathered any more understanding for what XTRO is as a film, what XTRO is as a creature. It seems like two very disparate films mashed together.
Yeah, or even three.
But it's a film that I've always liked, and I'm not sure why.
Yeah, I saw it at such a young age, and even before then, the video cover was so powerful to me the first time I saw it. I almost feel like it's always been there in my life. Just, that's a sad thing to say.
It's a rock.
But I feel like XTRO has always been with me. So, I find it quite hard to kind of analyze it because I associate so many of the things I think about XTRO are associated with the age at which I saw it as well. And when you watch films, especially horror films, when you're very, very young, the images kind of go into your psyche in a way that you don't really understand, and even years later you can't really separate yourself from those first early impressions. In particular, the relationship with the effects to what for me felt like almost like food textures always, really sort of disturbed me when I was a kid, and I still feel that way when I watch it. When I was at university, me and a bunch of friends decided to watch XTRO while eating a cheap Black Forest gatto from Iceland, as a kind of exercise to eat something cheap and nasty while watching XTRO, and it gave us all headaches and further cemented my weird sort of food-related relationship with XTRO.
I think there's something in that.
I think that's really lovely, though, that it's had this gigantic impact on you. And, there's something quite poignant and lovely in the fact that you feel like your whole life has just XTRO's been there like a friend, like a comforting friend.
But it's the whole idea of what we're trying to get people to do on here. It's kind of like, something you've got like that kind of deep-rooted affection for that you can't necessarily quantify in relation to the film itself. I like the idea of just it's obviously something that you tie a lot of kind of positivity to, kind of like through your kind of formative years and when your taste's forming. I think like that. A lot of the people that have come on so far that have argued the most convincingly and spoken about the films most earnestly are people whose memories are who's the reason that they've chosen it are kind of steeped in the kind of things that you're talking about here. Because
you can't really look at it objectively because you don't when I saw it, I did not have an adult developed mind.
Yeah,
my mind was still developing when I saw it, so I was not able to understand it, and I think that I still relate to it in a way as that same sort of 11-year-old the first time I saw it. And it's not even necessarily like a sort of fondness. It's just I do have ambivalent feelings towards it because I do think it does make me feel sick, and there's something a bit depressing about it as well.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah, because it's got this kind of weird TV, depressing Sunday night TV quality about it as well.
Yeah, a real BBC.
Yeah,
one of those really gritty kids things like Chalky.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
The Tomorrow People or something like that, like from the 80s, late 70s, early 80s.
It's also got that feeling of like things that were shown on Sunday night when you've got to get up for school the next morning, like Last of the Summer Wine and stuff like that, where something just a bit depressing about the feeling of it because it reminds you of having to go to school. Yeah, it's got that quality about it as well.
Yeah, something that falls right between Last of the Summer Wine and Doctor Who.
Yeah, it's got a bit of a Doctor Who quality to it as well, I think.
Yeah.
We're getting a very British frame of reference there now. Yeah.
It's so British though. Just the tone of it is very, very British.
Rob, thanks a lot for taking the time tonight. Before you go, one, is there anything that you want to talk about? And two, how can people catch up with you on social media?
Anything you want to talk about in terms of
let's
your
do that
work?
first. Okay.
In terms of your work.
Anything you want to plug? Anything like that?
Nothing happening in the imminent future. There's a thing, I'm doing a short film for Arrow Films, which will be on a Blu-ray later this year. I can't say what film it is yet.
Oh, cool.
It's sworn to secrecy, but I'm doing a little short film. Working on a feature, which, we're just waiting for funding at the moment, which is slowly coming together, hopefully. So,
an animated feature?
No, it's a mix of live action and animation.
Nice. Sweet. Cool.
But waiting for funding, so that could be next year, but it could be a few years. I don't know yet.
Sure.
Of course.
But in the meantime, how can people catch up with you?
I guess Social media wise, probably Facebook is probably where I post things the most. Facebook.com/Robert Morgan Films, I think it is. You can follow me there, and I'll post anything, any news or anything on there.
Rob, thanks for talking extra with us tonight.
No problem. Thanks for having me. It was fun to talk about this rotten gem.
So I guess kind of predictably, quite a lot to dig into.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah, as they say. Big thanks to Rob for stopping by. And
Absolutely. Yep. Thanks, Rob.
It's once again, almost inevitably, a first viewing for me. I'm a constant disappointment in that way.
No. That, like you said before, you should view this as an education.
Yeah, like
as a viewing odyssey.
It seems like I'm judging by the feedback that we're getting, it seems like some of the listeners are doing that as well. So I feel less bad about it.
Yeah, but that's a good thing.
I feel a little bit vindicated. Yeah, like by the fact that people are going on the same journey as me.
Yeah.
Getting into these things. However, let's take a look at the feedback section. I'm going to give you the feedback section for this week. So I guess first and foremost, anything ref in the Mouth of Madness?
Yeah, absolutely. Jonathan Dodson again at John D. Beard has said, "Dudes, this is my number one all-time favourite film."
Oh,
so that's pretty huge praise.
Huge praise
for In the Mouth of Madness.
It's a fine film, to be fair.
That is a very good film.
I feel like we didn't do very much arguing about it, but I think that's fine. I think that the idea was that we kind of came in and spoke about it as being a kind of underrated Carpenter film.
Yeah.
And we all kind of came out, in a kind of predictable way. But I think it's like, we're all going to dig it. But yeah, it was a fun conversation. To that end, we've got Nazi on Twitter, Sheridan Knott, saying another great show. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
If Laurie Brewster comes back, which he may, would love to hear his views.
I'm not having that.
Oh, really?
No.
Okay, you're just vetoing that right now.
Vetoing that right now.
Okay. So, going on that hypothetical then, seeing as you're not lacking back.
No.
Sheridan said that he would like to have heard Laurie's opinion on either Serpent in the Rainbow or Dust Devil.
Both very good films, yeah. And actually both that I can see Laurie throwing himself into quite wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I could see him being the defender.
I'm of course kidding. If Laurie's more than welcome back anytime he wants to come back.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Well, within reason. Almost any time.
Yeah. I think that's fair. You got anything else on In the Mouth of Madness before we start working back?
Got a Peter Campbell at Peter PRR Peter Prr saying In the Mouth of Madness is terrific. Sam Neill is hilarious in it.
I think hilarious. I don't know. I think he's very good, and I think there's some flashes of things that I think are kind of pretty funny. But
I think on the whole, he's playing it not hilarious. Does he mean hysterical?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, because he's definitely that.
Yeah, he's definitely hysterical.
A couple of instances, yeah. Anything else in the mouth?
No, not that I can see.
So I can jump back to when you put out, or we put out on Twitter this week, we're asking people what their favourite episodes have been so far. Again, just kind of because we want to know what people were responding to.
Mm-hmm.
And Grant the Bear at Comfortably Dumb on Twitter got in touch saying either Detention or The Village. One of them emphasised why I love the film, and the latter made me question whether I do actually love it as much as I thought.
Now, you dug a little bit deeper into that.
Well, I got a little bit curious, so I replied saying, this is interesting. What changed about your thoughts on The Village after the episode? And he said, Graham Skipper pointing out that something he'd never thought about, which was the willingness of the kind of villagers to let their kids die in the name of what they pursued, kind of with the full awareness that the medicine to fix them existed in the outside world.
Yeah, absolutely. Which
I think is... Not necessarily something that should make you dislike the film any less, but dislike the main characters a little more. Because they're despicable, but I think that, like, if anything, I think that when we really got into that, I think it made that a little bit more interesting and informed how I looked at the characters a little bit more, rather than, like I said, the characters dropped in my estimation, but the film didn't.
Caitlin Downs touched on Blair Witch 2.
Oh, yeah.
At Caitlin M. Downs on Twitter, got in touch to say that a director's cut would be fantastic, would be interested in comparing the two versions, and you reached out kind of off the back of that comment just to say that you would love to see what's left out almost as much as what's included. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, I think that without the kind of studio interference thing, I'd be quite curious to know how it shakes out. So as regards this week, predictably, Dennis XTRO Atherton was pretty enthused about the fact we were talking about XTRO this week.
Yes,
which is fair enough. He's a vocal supporter of the film.
We knew he would be.
Yeah.
If anyone's going to be, it's going to be Dennis XTRO Atherton.
Yeah, I'd like to think so.
I think that's on his credit cards and stuff.
I hope so.
I think it probably
Yeah, I
is.
hope that's his real name now. But no,
Like Meatloaf.
exactly. Yeah, I hope so. But no, he got in touch to say that the announcement had made his day, which is nice. He said, I just watched the new Blu-ray this weekend and loved it.
Yeah.
But also, he touched on the minisode, which I would concede was a little bit shambolic this week.
Yeah, do we want to go down the road of issuing a second apology? Was one enough?
Well, we did our best, I think. Yeah, I'm not. You know what? I'm not going to.
We're still here. If anything, we should be commended because we're still here trying to put an episode out, even when barriers are up in our way.
Exactly. Yeah. But he did say, I want to say to you both that I both love your commitment. Mitch hiding behind the flats doing the podcast, which if you're listening to the minisode, you'll know that I was coming to you live from crouched down in a Leith car park, getting suspicious glances from the occupants of the flats behind me.
Well, you sucked petrol from.
Yeah, I was furiously
petrol
siphoning
off,
petrol from nearby vehicles. Yeah. He also
Take the man out of Aberdeen.
Oh shit. But he also passed a wee comment on In the Mouth of Madness, said it was his favourite episode so far.
Oh, that's lovely, yeah.
It said, never throw chips at the driver, which I think is good advice.
Yeah.
And said, I love Sam Neill. Zalewski's Possession is another brilliant Sam Neill performance with lots to talk about. I think that's the kind of thing that I would love to talk about in the show, but people rightfully like it a little bit too much.
What? Possession?
Possession, yeah. It's deservingly a very acclaimed beast.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about in Possession, though.
There definitely is, yeah.
Not a lot of laughs to be found, though.
No, I would say that, plumbing the comedy in there would be pretty tricky.
I think you're going to struggle to fit some stuff in there. Now, also off the back of XTRO, the announcement rather that we're doing XTRO this week, Hayley Alice Roberts at Welsh Demoness got in touch on Twitter saying, very much looking forward to the Strong Violent PC episode this Friday. The film is a newly discovered favourite of mine.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah. What episode would be complete without a comment from Darren Gaskell?
The third man, Darren Gaskell.
Yeah, he got in touch off the back of the announcement about Rob coming on to do XTRO. Saying, this is going to be an interesting one.
Okay.
I love this guy's work, speaking of Rob, particularly Bobby, yeah. But I've never been a big fan of the movie he's chosen. Looking forward to it. Well, Darren, I hope that you've maybe revisited it prior to listening to this episode, and you've maybe viewed it in a different light, or if anything else, perhaps enhanced your dislike for it. But nonetheless, we hope you enjoyed this episode.
Absolutely, yeah. And thank you as always for getting in touch, I guess. As well.
Yeah. One thing I do want to say as well, we had a drop off in the 5-word reviews.
Yeah, it's true, we did. Yeah, we should. Partially self-inflicted, I think.
Go on.
Because we probably we could have stood to mention them a little more.
Right, okay.
But we definitely we want to hear your 5-word reviews on the films that we're picking. Not just like feedback in general, but yeah, if you've got a 5-word review to throw away, whether you're revisiting or seeing for the first time, let's up with your 5-word reviews.
Yeah.
Let's get a
and
few
we'll
more
read them out.
Yeah, we will.
We'll read them out.
It's pretty cool that people are still getting in touch and are obviously catching up with back episodes.
Oh, definitely.
And things, which you can do now in a whole load of ways.
Oh, yeah, here we go. Yeah, another Bain segue here. Yeah, yes, indeed. As you all know, you can listen to us on Stitcher, iTunes, and Podbean.
Yeah, they've been our mainstays. They've been the backbone for a while.
Yeah, especially Podbean, our hosting home.
Yeah.
Yep. But, however, you can now also listen to us on Google's new podcast app.
Which I believe is just called Google Podcasts,
It's called Google Podcasts, yeah. You can get that from the Apple Store or the Android Store. And you can also now hear us on Spotify.
Yep, absolutely brand new information that works. Great.
Spanking new, straight out the gate. You can get us on Spotify.
Yeah. And don't forget also, if you want to get in touch with us, because I guess we're kind of driving towards the end of this thing now.
Yeah, people know how this is shaking.
Yeah, exactly. You know you're signing up for at this point. And if you do want to get in touch with us, and please keep doing that, because it's great to hear from you all.
Absolutely.
You can get in touch on Facebook. And
it does make us feel like we're not like screaming out into oblivion.
Yeah, into the abyss. Yeah, no, it's true. It's nice to know that there's somebody out there. But yeah, no, if you want to get in touch with us, please do feel free to do that. You can get in touch on Facebook and Instagram at Strong Language Violent Scenes. You can tweet us as well at Strong Violent PC, and you can also email us at stronglanguageviolentscenes@gmail.com. No, thanks very much once again though to everyone who's tuned in tonight, and a big thank you also to Mr. Rob Morgan for stopping by and talking
Absolutely.
extra.
Thanks, Rob, again.
And in the meantime, don't forget
what?
That it is better to die a hero than live as food in a world of shads. Good night.
Good night.
You've been listening to Strong Language and Violent Scenes with Andy Stewart and Mitch Bain. Strong Language and Violent Scenes theme by Mitch Bain, production and artwork by Andy Stewart. Find us on Stitcher, iTunes and Podbean.